and the Hangout on Air is live. So, since I don't really know whether or not Venita is coming, I don't I don't think we really need to wait for anybody because my experience has been that people will say they're coming to the event
Mm-hmm.
and then you just never hear from them again.
Right.
Um, what the heck noise is that? Oh, I set a new alarm on my calendar. That's the first time I
Okay.
heard it. Uh, so yeah, that seems to be like the thing to do. I guess it's not new. It's my generation kind of folks, I think, and down, where you say you're going to do something and don't do it, um, which is what I like about people your age, since you are practically old enough to be my daddy.
Well, I always look up to you.
But I mean, I think that's where we lost the focus. That's the last. You're like the last generation that has this notion of what it means to have character. What it means um, for your word to mean something. Your word is your bond.
Yeah. Well, it took me many, many, many years to learn that.
Oh yeah.
And I'm still learning that. How important it is. And I guess the biggest thing, Logan, is very simply this. To think before you speak, in a sense, that do not commit to something that you don't plan on keeping. So I'm just a little less, I'm more inhibited and a little less anxious to commit to things that I don't plan on carrying through with. You know,
And that's it.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
So we do have one viewer, it looks like, or one
Okay,
person that's trying to come in and out. So why don't we go ahead and get started?
okay,
And I have a little opening I want to put on the record here.
okay.
Let me do that. And just say hello and welcome everyone to Series 2 of the Revolutionary Love Leadership Series. My name is Michelle Odom, and I'm one of the co hosts of this online group. I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. This series runs from today, December 18th, 2015, through April 15th, 2016. And our reading selection is Blackmailed, an anthology produced by Inner Child Press. The Blackmail Writers, with words from Imam Jamil Abdullah Al-Amin, aka H. Rap Brown. This is a powerful collection of essays, commentaries, speeches, poetry, and short stories by revolutionary voices of love, compiled and produced by Inner Child Press. And my co-host here is Bill Peters, William S. Peters Sr., who is actually the publisher of Inner Child Press and this volume. So thank you for anyone who is joining us today. We're going to continue our readings on Fridays through April, 6:30 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, here on Google Plus Hangouts on Air. The series is open to the public, and you should feel free to join the live broadcast whenever you like. You can also learn more about the Revolutionary Love Leadership Series on Google Plus, YouTube, and Facebook. And feel free to join us reading our story together. Um, Bill, why don't you say hello and tell us where you are and whatever?
Hello, I am Bill Peters, aka, as Logan said, William S. Peters Sr. I'm in southern New Jersey. in a town called Chislehurst. Okay, and this is pretty much where I grew up for the most part. And that's pretty much it. Who am I? I'm just a guy that likes to write and express myself, and writing's a safe haven, as opposed to my mouth. So there we go.
Yeah, yeah. And somehow I didn't hear in there that you are a prolific poet.
That's a matter of opinion. I guess
Well,
I've been
tell
celebrated
us how
enough with.
many tell us how many books you've written.
Oh God, be honest with you. I know I'm over 35. Um, and that does not exclude like maybe another 30 or 40 anthologies that I'm a part of. Yeah, about 40 of them. So we're just keep on moving on. As I said, writing is my out, so to speak. It's my pulpit. There we go.
Okay, I understand. I understand. Okay, so let me get over here to the agenda and give me a second to get that kind of set up the way I want. One of our general community rules, Bill, is to try not to mute your mic so we can have an easy flow of conversation. But if you know that there are unseemly noises going on in your background, then
Okay.
feel free to mute your mic.
Okay.
And I think that's it. So, do you want to say anything else about inner child or your background or?
I guess we can get to that. Whatever. Me, I'm just always try to keep it low key about all that kind of stuff, so to speak. Inner Child Press, www.innerchildpress.com. I think you can go there and kind of get a feel for who we are as Inner Child Press, which is an extension of myself. So you get a feel for who I am through looking at the website. Also have a personal website, www.imjustbill.com. And of course, you can contact me on Facebook. But I'm just not big in blowing my own horn. There might be a few things, but we'll get to that.
Well,
Yes.
well, somebody needs to blow it. You want to say a word about world peace, world health?
Yes. And let me back it up a little bit. Since 2011, we have been doing an effort every 2 years called World Healing, World Peace, which is a collection of poets from all over the world, expressing their thoughts, their feelings, their insights about that particular theme of world healing, world peace. And Lord knows we need, a little peace and healing, whether it's, the demographics of countries, the demographics of politics, religion, sexuality, ethnicity, and, across all those particular demographics. And also within those demographics, as we're all too familiar with in our community, that there's a lot of healing that needs to take place. So we've been involved with that effort. We're now in the collection mode for the 2016 issue, which will be published April of 2016. And if you want to submit, that closes December the 31st of this year. That gives us enough time to compile that. I recently in September had the opportunity, here goes blowing the horn. I recently had the opportunity in September of this year to attend and participate in the Kosovo International Poetry Festival, which is around the area of Albania and Serbia, Eastern Europe. And, I was well received, which was a good thing, made me feel really, really good. Janet and I went. And as a result of that, they celebrated my book, The Vine Keeper, as well as I was named Poet Laureate and awarded the Golden Grape Award, so that's, probably, there's been a lot of things I've accomplished and a lot of celebration, over the years. But, as of late, that is probably one of the most significant achievements.
Bill, Something happened to your
Yeah.
sound.
Yes. It said someone, Moby, muted me.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened, but
Okay, Mo, are you there? Okay. This is a new experience. I don't know what this is, but Mo, I don't see a picture for you, so I'm gonna need to hide you from the broadcast. You can try to go out and come back in, but okay. Oh, this is I haven't done. This person is being ejected. I haven't done a broadcast in quite a while. I'm trying to eject him, but he doesn't seem to be gone. Okay. All right. I haven't done a broadcast in a while, and I'm sorry to our viewer, um, where we have allowed the public to come into the Hangout, but that was a troll. So
no.
I'll tell you later, Bill, about what was happening there.
They exist, unfortunately.
Yes.
Hmm.
So you were saying that about the Kosovo
Yeah,
trip.
as I was saying, they celebrated my book, The Vine Keeper, and I was named Poet Laureate. With that, I received what they call the Golden Grape Award, their first ever, which is a clump of gold within the shape of a grape cluster.
Wow.
So that was, so I'm still a little high on that experience. And,
Yes.
over the years between radio and magazines and newspapers, I've had my share, even television of late. I've had my share of, the light being shined on me, so to speak.
Uh-huh.
But, still, I try to embrace, you know, uh, my humility, so to, I mean, simply because I feel uncomfortable, with that light shining. It gets a little hot too, with expectations and things of that nature. But one other thing I like to mention is, like for me, going forward and also reaching back, I actually started. I committed to writing back in 1966. I was 15 years old to writing poetry, and one of the things I've always found is that even with the confines of the poetry community or the writing community, because I write other stuff besides poetry, there still remains reflection of what society is, the divisiveness, all those things that keep us apart. So over the last couple of years, we've been doing an anthology month by month called The Year of the Poet, where we have a core posse, what we call the Poetry Posse, that contribute to the work each month. And each month we feature three poets. And what we have been able to do is to embrace and showcase the diversity, because we have poets from various genres and various perspectives of life that are contributing to the same direction, contributing to the same vision. And we have found that's uplifting, because I think that one of the things that gets lost in the narrative, of society, is that nobody's really listening to anybody else. You know, I listen
Hmm.
to my clique and the people in my group. I'm indifferent about how it affects you and that person, because they're not like me. And at some point in time, if we want to embrace our humanity, so to speak, we got to get beyond all these barriers and things that we have been indoctrinated and taught to erect, to keep us from being congruous with each other. And forgive me, I talk with my hands a lot, so but
Okay.
and that's really my personal focus. As you asked me earlier about religion, and I defer to the fact that it's about spirituality, not religion for me. And I kind of feel that way in all aspects of our life and how we express ourselves. If the spirit is not with it, we probably need to keep our mouths shut. you know
Hmm.
but that's
So,
basically it.
so tell me what, tell me the spirit behind this. Tell me what motivated Black Mailed.
Well, the truth of the matter is, very simply, coming up, and I'm of that. I was born in the 51, So coming up in school and through the education system, there was not much afforded in reference to an education about who I was. At every turn, not every turn, but most turns, I was ostracized from being a part of the mainstream, which is a European-oriented America, because I did grow up in America, and we kind of felt that, to some extent, it was necessary for us to, record our history, so to speak. So within this particular book, as you were saying, there's poetry, speeches, historic speeches, as a matter of fact, commentary, and stories that speak of the conditions of the Black male here in America. And we coined the phrase "black mailed" with the teal between the E and the D in male, because it is about the Black male, but we have been blackmailed, so to speak, to believe in a dream that is not for us. So I felt it was integrally important to be able to, there's certain things that this new generation don't know about. They don't know about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X other than the T-shirts. They don't know about H. Rap Brown and the significance he had, or Huey Newton, or Stokely Carmichael, or Angela Davis. They don't know about these things. So it was an opportunity for us to take, select, conversations and speeches and pay it forward. God forbid should they sit down and read a book, at least it's there for them. Maybe a parent might sit down and read to their child, whether it be a poem or a commentary, but it does give that type of exposure that we cannot depend on the traditional school system or education system to provide for us. Not all of us are fortunate to go to a historically Black college, or to have parents that are educating us, but we are doing our part by putting it in a book. All we need to do is start reading again. I say that facetiously, but it's real true that we really need to start reading again. Doing research, go on YouTube, go do these various places, just so we can become more familiar with who we are.
One of the where is it? One of the comments that you have in here that certainly caught my eye was about, here it is. It's a quote from WSP. The simple act of reading a book is what empowers our children's future. WSP, of course, is our co-host, Bill William S. Peters. And, and that's certainly what motivates me to do the kind of thing that I'm doing here with these reading circles, because, as much as I love to write, and as much as you push me to write, and as much as I love to read, I know that, for a lot of reasons, these are dying arts,
Yeah.
And that is, and that is, I believe, a grave danger for humanity, because there's but so much that you can get out of a conversation, to really understand things. You need to dig deeper. You need to go deeper. You need to, hear what other people have thought, and process all of that to really form a strong opinion for yourself, a reasonable opinion for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what we have going on is people that have a lot of opinions, but have very little information.
Right. Uninformed opinions. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, what I've been working on for the last year or so, Bill, is trying to turn this into a nonprofit organization, called Reading for Change. And I'm not there yet, but I've been doing the work anyway. And, but that's it, that somehow we have to start sharing what we know, and getting people to process and think about
Right.
what it is they're doing. Because I think, along with the uninformed opinions, people are just acting, they're just doing, they're just copying, they're just being programmed
Right.
by a culture, as I think you write somewhere in the introduction, that doesn't have your best interest at heart.
Right.
And I had a series one of the Revolutionary Love Leadership series. We read the book by Ta-Nehisi Coates, Between the
Mhm.
World and Me. And my co-host with that was my son, Dean Goldson. And he has a son who's about to turn 5 years old. And he was kind of grappling with, like, feeling like he needed to be talking to his black son about issues of police brutality.
Mhm.
I felt like it was much too soon. And so I wanted to get into that discussion with him. And so this book had just come out where Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote to his son, who's a teenager. So I thought that would be a good way to open up the discussion
Mhm.
between me and my son,
Mhm.
around issues that I know you have to deal with
Right.
as a black parent. I mean, how do you prepare your children to
Right.
live in this world? And so, to the extent that we have to make those kinds of decisions in isolation, and
Mhm.
we don't know how other people have dealt with it, because we're
Right.
all dealing with the same
Right.
problem.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, anyway, thank you for that
Mhm.
introduction.
Yeah. If I
Um,
may,
sure.
I want to tag, tagging on your coattail on the commentary you just offered. Um, I had an opportunity in my lifetime to experience Philadelphia and Savannah, Georgia, and New Jersey. You know, um, in coming up, and I'm going to say, to a relative degree, I defer in reference to that it's too early, because me personally, it really was not until my 40s that I was able to process my experiences and come to a conclusion about what they were about, because I had no reference. Okay. I was fortunate to have a father figure in the home, so I was not suffering that particular type of illusion that was forced upon us. But I do say that, a lot of children these days, are suffering things they don't understand, and then when we look at, the processing of information, you know, um, currently today we see a lot of, defenseless black males, black people, period, that are, being gunned down, murdered, persecuted in the courts or in the streets or whatever, at the hand of European Americans. But one thing that and I know that is amiss, is that there's a lot of violence going on in our community, that we are not dealing with. And, because it's so much more comfortable to point to that 10% of other people that are doing things to us. But I think collectively, good with this particular series about the black love, the revolutionary love, we need an interior revolution, about ourselves. We need to get away from our self-hate, and learn to love ourselves as a community, love our fathers, whether they're in the house or not, love our mothers, respect them, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that all speaks to the dynamic that, um, the propaganda has done its job, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
and excuse my language, everything from the mentality, the house nigga, to the light skin, to the straight hair, the Farrah Fawcett hair, and all these are illusions that were fed to us that we embrace, you
right.
know. And not to say there's anything wrong with rap or hop, but we embrace these illusions and delusions to think that we're all going to grow up to be basketball stars, movie stars, or hip hop artists, and not all of us, but a large amount of us, when there's so many other things that we have contributed to, you know, um, this country is built on our backs, and I think that particular type of education process, I mean, to know who George W. Washington Carver was, and the struggles he went through, You know,
Mhm.
I mean, we need to know not only what they accomplished, what type of struggles they had to go through to accomplish, so that we too, our children, can kind of muster that resolve to stand the test of time and say, hey, by any means necessary, as Malcolm says, I'm going to make this. I'm going to make this happen. And forgive me, I get a little passionate about this
Well,
because I have 11
no,
children.
no. Thank you. No, I mean, 5 years old to me is a great time to be talking about Black history and,
Okay, yeah,
culture and that kind of thing. My concern was the fear,
yeah,
in instilling the fear. Part of the complexity in my son's situation is, of course, he's married to a white Jewish, not
hmm
Jewish, German woman,
hmm
and they live in Germany,
okay,
which is a predominantly white country,
right,
even more so than America.
right,
And so his wife, who of course is a lovely person, but her experience is totally different from that of
yeah,
the African American. And so she's in the process of teaching her son, if you ever let go of mommy's hand and get lost, go find a policeman, right?
hmm
And my son is feeling like, oh no.
But isn't that the way it's supposed to be? You know what I mean? Like that's the thing about being disenfranchised from being a part of this society, and the fact that we cannot seek out the same alternatives, as our European counterparts. You know,
Right.
um, so either we have to develop other alternatives or just continue to go blindly forward. Thinking that the system's going to work for us as equally as it does for everybody else.
Right.
Which we
Right.
know.
Which we
Yeah,
know it doesn't.
right.
So, okay, so let's get into a couple of these questions. I'll
Okay.
go ahead and read the first part. Do you have the agenda up?
No, I didn't see an agenda.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Okay. If you go back to the email that I sent you last night,
Okay.
in that same section where the link to come into the Hangout,
hmm
there's a link to the agenda.
Okay.
Okay, so while you look for
Yes.
that, I will read this part. In the foreword, written by June Bearfield, she writes, I do not believe Black folk want liberation from what ails them in today's society. A gold card and perhaps a gym membership somewhere seems to be quite enough. A young boy dies at the hands of a white man on the streets in America, and just as quickly, we pull out our racial discrimination cards and march around for as long as the news covers the story. Perhaps my views on the subject of us would not be so radical, so offbeat, if you will, if I myself were not dirt poor. I can see walls with many windows, but the house is gone. The house where our so-called radicalism is only street theater, where we fight the phantoms of yesterday's dreams and realize together the present. So my first question, have you found it yet, Bill?
I'm trying to pull it up now as I'm talking, but
Okay. So when you find it, I am on page 2, question 3. And this is the question. Do you agree with the writer about our better days being all behind us? We are perhaps still in the early days of the Black Lives Matter movement. Is it too soon to tell whether this movement will wither and die as so much street theater before it has succeeded at wakening the sleeping masses? Why or why not? And then a second question there is, Bearfield suspects that her radicalism may be
his.
related to, huh?
That's a he. June is a he.
June is a he?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, oh. See what I mean? So see what happens
hmm
to me for being what am I being, heteronormative or something? Bearfield suspects that his radicalism may be related to his poverty. What do you imagine would motivate a person of middle or upper income and wealth to care about the plight of low income and impoverished people? Okay, so the first question is about, are better days behind us? And the second question is about caring.
Well, to some relative degree, I agree. You know, and in other words, if we did a litmus test as to where we are at this particular moment, you know, it can be very, very frustrating, you know, and pretty dismal in reference to where we are, because as I was stating earlier, there are there are more concerns that we have within our community than the community at large. You know, I'm sure there's no equity or parity, or, you know, very little justice and things of that nature. However, you know, something my grandmother used to say, you know, you take care of home first, you know, and I think once we learn and understand collectively, we have to take care of home. That empowers us to go out and make demands, everything from voting in blocks to, you know, saying nay to the districting and gerrymandering, and, you know, showing up in the courts, going and being a part of the juries. You know, there's so much that we can do, you know, to empower our position. You know, I mean, we could take a page out. I hate to say it this way, but truth be told, we can take a page out of the book of the Mexicans, you know, and see how they rally around each other, you know, and I think that's important. I mean, it's not that their community doesn't have their problems, but certainly, you know, a lot of the problems that we have, you know, are born out of us buying into the hype, so to speak, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so being dismal and being, you know, almost to the point of hopelessness, perhaps that's the catalyst that spurns us to change, you know, to realize that, you know, generation after generation, we cannot go on this way. And that's not to say that it was that great back in the 50s and 40s and 30s and all that kind of stuff, because you know, we were still being lynched from trees in the 60s. So you know, so there's we got comfortable, just like everybody else. We got comfortable, but that still does not enfranchise us to say that we're a part of quote unquote America. We're
Right.
still being treated as outsiders, and yeah, with a mentality of not belonging here.
Yeah, well, okay. I you know, I guess that's a way of looking at it, that being at the point of hopelessness may be the thing um, that we need to motivate us. Um, but this opening to the book um, felt felt negative to me. Felt like negative energy to me, and I am growing concerned by the minutes,
Hmm.
that there's so much negative energy going on
Hmm.
in the world, that rather than motivating us to get up and do, it's leading us into really such a deep state of hopelessness, that like a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of
Right,
thing.
right.
Like,
Well,
and I think we have to stop telling ourselves that
right.
our better days are behind us and there's nothing, because if that's the truth, then let's just kill ourselves. you
Well,
know
I'm gonna use a metaphor because I know June personally,
hmm
and I think I got a feel for what he's doing and also saying. And I'm gonna use an analogy. If you walk into a room that is dark and you're looking for your car keys, but you know where the light switch is, but you refuse to turn it on. And I think to a large degree that's where we are. It's not that we don't know. We do. We do know what our ills and problems are. I mean, they make it very, very evident. But when are we going to turn the light switch on and say, okay, I'm going to be responsible? you know, for changing the bulb, having this light on, you know, and getting the keys that I need so I can open this prison door that we have, you know, so willingly, you know, locked ourselves, you know, in, you know, and continue to do so, you know, so I do understand what June is saying, you know, and to some degree, you know, he's a part of our generation, you know, and when you stop and you look back as to where we came from, sure, it seems like things were so much more comfortable in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. Where, you know, were they really? It was just that, you know, the things that were really and truthfully going on were hidden behind the curtains, like the Wizard of Oz. You know, we didn't know who that wizard was until, you know, Dorothy ripped the curtain down. And it's time for us to start ripping curtains down, realize that, you know, yeah, like I said, we're less than 50 years away from being lynched still, you know, and, you know, and, you know, maybe the venue of how we are persecuted has changed, but still, and yet we're being persecuted. And it's not to say that we are allowing it. It's just that they are doing it, and we have to find some type of resolve in order to change it, you know, which is why things like this is so important, because we have to kind of, you know, turn that light switch on, you know, and say, hey, you know, not only do I need the keys, but, you know, some things got to change in this darkened room. We need to keep the light on, you know, and that's always been our struggle, so to speak. You know, it's always been our struggle, because this is not the first time around that we've had this. I mean, we had this, you know, these particular type of discussions in the 60s, and we thought we achieved something, you know, through King and X and the Voting Rights Acts, and, you know, how we embraced deludedly Kennedy, you know, and all those particular things that we thought they were going to grant us some type of hope, you know, as a Christmas gift, you know, so to speak. And, you know, of course, it did not happen.
Venita has joined us. Hi, Venita.
Hi, Venita.
Hi, how are you? I beg your pardon for showing up late, but I'm here.
Well, why don't you kind of introduce yourself, so I'll have that on the tape.
My name is Venita Walker, and I am joining you from Cromwell, Connecticut, where it's very cold.
Okay, well, welcome. I'm glad you made it. We are just on questions 3 and 4. Do you have the agenda?
Actually not. I'm unprepared tonight.
Okay. If you check your email, I sent an email last night, and that has the link in it for the agenda, or it's also on the Facebook page and the event and all of that. But check the email. So, what about this question, Bill, of it says Bearfield suspects that his radicalism may be related to his poverty. What do you imagine would motivate a person of middle or upper income and wealth to care about the plight of low income and impoverished people? And, you know, and I guess I want to add as an addenda, should that really be the goal? You know, changing what other people think about us or do for us or do to us, you know?
Well, as I was saying earlier, you know, tagging on to the last part of the comment, I really truthfully believe that we have to do for ourselves, you know, and then from that perspective, we are operating from a point of strength, and we can demand relatively, you know, what's to be done for us, as opposed to sitting back waiting for a handout from NASA, so to speak, you know. You know, I do not think, you know, and, you know, I've never been a European in my life. You know, I've been black all my life. You know, so, you know, we can look objectively and see the privilege which they enjoy, and they look at it from a subjective point of view, not really understanding it. You know, and, you know, whether I can expect them to voluntarily change it, so to speak, you know, I can't live with that. I can't just go on with that, which is why it's important for us to have these.
I mean, I do think that one of the points that Bearfield is getting at in that introduction is, you know, even black people, you know, when they get a little money, you know, very often seem to no longer care about those who have less. Would you say that that was a
I'm
piece of
not going to
what he
be,
was
and
getting
I'm
at?
not going to be all inclusive condemning, but yes, a large majority, it does appear that way for a large majority.
Hmm.
Um, the I got mine type thing. But unfortunately, there's a part of me being raised the way I was raised that, embraces the dreams, the hopes, and the faith that things are going to change, which I feel are debilitating to a large degree. But I have to still embrace that we can effectuate change, you know. Um, and perhaps these people will become more conscious, but if you look at some of the icons in our community, like the Oprahs and the Michael Jordans and the various other places, I have to ask, what are you doing? What are you
Right.
doing? I mean, you came out of the same, communities we all did. What are you doing to effectuate a change, to empower more of us, to step up into the limelight, or, be empowered, whether it's just, having a good job or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Benita, you okay over there? Okay, I can't hear you now.
Actually looking for the agenda in my mail.
Uh-huh.
Um,
It doesn't say agenda. It says it's just what does it say? I, all right, I'm gonna find it.
I'm sorry for the
It's
interrupting like this.
it says link to Hangout, and I sent it at 11:57 p.m. Thursday last night.
Hmm. Okay.
Um, let me. I'm sorry about this, Bill. Give me a second. I'm gonna
Oh, no problem.
uh, send
Actually, I
it.
don't even see it here.
All right, I'm sending it to you right now.
Perfect. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption. I really do apologize.
No problem.
Okay, it should be on its way.
Perfect.
Okay, and you found it, Bill?
Uh, yeah, I was looking at the one that says introduction, that particular document,
Oh, okay. So yes,
and
so in the agenda on page 3, would you read that opening section B from the very beginning?
oh, okay, yeah, so I'm on the agenda. From the very beginning of Blackmailed, truth comes up as a concern. For example, in the publisher's word, Bill wrote, "My prayer is that we as a humanity awaken. I further believe that it begins with paying forward some truths unto the next generation, that they may know of the circumstances and environment we now endure, and that of the generations who preceded us. I further assert that we as a humanity owe truth to the future, that every child may know of their true worth, and not that which has been fed unto them by those who have not in their agendas the welfare of our community or that of humanity." You know. And if I may comment, because on that real quick,
Hmm.
Logan,
Sure.
I read it in Ubuntu, saying yesterday or day before yesterday, and I see if I can get it right. It says, if it's not good for anyone or one person, then it's not good for everyone. You know, um, and so what I'm saying is, a lot of times when we look at our Afrocentric or Black American ways, a lot of times it has a tendency to polarize us away from humanity, where in essence we want to be inclusive of humanity, to an extent, in that I want to be treated, my children treated the same way as everybody's treated. I don't want to be polarized. And I think that whole divide and conquer mentality is what is prevalent, not only between us and them, so to speak, but within our own communities. We have this divide and conquer mentality. You know, I'm better than thee, I have more money than thee, I drive a nicer car, you know, I live in a nicer neighborhood, and all that particular type of things, and all those particular dynamics that keep us from being congruous.
Mhm. Mhm. I agree.
Yeah.
So question 5 there is what is one truth you would like to pay forward to future generations? And question 6, many ideas and facts compete for a claim on truth in this marketplace of ideas where everybody's selling something. What thoughts do you have about how to recognize and instill truth? What truths do you want to pay forward, and how do you instill them?
I think, you know, whether one objectively wants to call it delusion or, you know, false hopes or whatever, I think the biggest truth I'd like to pay forward personally is that, as Obama said in his first campaign, yes, we can. You know, I firmly believe that, not because Obama said it, but I firmly believe that, yes, we can. The road may be tougher, it might be more briar patches along the way, but, you know, we have some marvelous history of people, you know, that came up from the same humble beginnings as we have, that have accomplished things. I think that, you know, sometimes, and I got to say this with, you know, being tentative, sometimes, how would I say this? We kind of lose our focus because we find us a comfort zone to lay up in, you know, and that's my greatest fear, is that,
Mhm.
you know, we give up on our dreams, we give up on our goals, we give up on, you know, seeking out. I mean, it's just like atypically what has happened from the 60s when we had, you know, the Panthers and King and X and all those, Stokely Carmichael, A-Truck Brown, all those people rallying for the cause of equality and understanding and knowledge and light and what have you, to the point from the 80s on, we just kind of fell off. That, you know, and we blame it on the fact we had no leaders, you know, because after King, what did we have? We had Jesse Jackson, and we had Jesse Jackson. You know, so because we had, back in those days, we had Megger, King, and so many others. However, the point of the matter is that's no excuse. You know, for me, that's no excuse. You know, and I think that, you know, all too often we've been indoctrinated and inundated with the fact that it was okay, you know, to not pick up the flag and continue to charge, continue the work that was done, you know, early on. You know, and I think for me, that's a particular truth, you know, that I have to see every day when I look in the mirror. That's a particular truth when I examine my own consciousness and soul and spirit. Like, what am I doing today? You know, and most of the times I don't necessarily feel great about what I'm doing, because I feel there's always more that I can do. But by the same token, I'm relatively, to a degree, satisfied that I am doing something. You know,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I think that particular consciousness needs to be, not to be blowing my own horn, so to speak, but I think that we need more of that particular consciousness as to what you're doing. You don't have to do this. Venita doesn't have to be here, but I just kind of think that we need more of that. And we can look at the invites that we're sending out versus who is showing up. We're not showing up. We're not showing up.
Right. Well, and that would be one of the truths that I want to pay forward. I mean, one thing that I've always liked about you. Well, before I say that, let me say I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the expression Black Lives Matter. Um, you know, I mean, I like what they're trying to do in terms of highlighting the police violence
Mm-hmm.
that Black people are having to deal with, and I get that what they're saying is, you know, you can't do this, you can't treat
Mm-hmm.
us like this and have it be okay.
Mm-hmm.
But my concern um, is that I don't know that we're really instilling that message in ourselves. Um, because I'm a firm believer that you can't expect anybody else to care about you if you don't care about yourself. If you
Right.
don't set your
Exactly.
own boundaries, if all of that. And so what I have always liked about you, Bill, is that to me you're a living example of my life matters. You're not waiting for a big publishing house to send you the acceptance letter and say yes. you know,
Hmm.
we approve this message.
Right.
you know?
And to back up a minute, I read a demographic, a few weeks ago, that was posted by Todd. I know you know Todd Smith, and they were talking about black murders, and they said, and I think it was the year 2014, there was like 1,400 and some odd black murders, and 90% of them were committed by us. That in and of itself tells me that number one, there's another agenda going on, and number two, that we have a lot of work in our own community to do. Regardless of for whatever reason that has transpired to be such. My God, I mean, we look at Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, and all the major urban areas, and we get we got to do it, and not that we cannot sit and wait for them to do something about it.
Right. And
I would have thought that
that's the
Chicago being
message.
Obama's hometown, that he would have had a special task force in there, but not.
No.
So the question is, what are we going to do about it?
Right. And
It's sort of kind of
that's the message, that's the truth that
yeah,
I would like to pay forward, that
yeah,
that we have to say to ourselves that, I matter. I,
mm, yeah,
the individual, I matter. I have some power. There are some things that I can do, and I can't wait for, my affirmation or my approval or my go card to come from any place else.
mm-hmm,
You know, and so uh, 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 my voice matters, my actions matter, you know, um, all of it.
yeah.
And, so anyway, Venita,
Yes,
where are you?
I'm right here.
What thoughts do you have about what ideals would you like to pay forward, and do you have any thoughts about how to instill them?
I agree with both of you. Michelle and I had a discussion about this the other day. I remember my godmother always telling me that you have to sweep around your own backyard before you can sweep around someone else's.
Yeah.
Bill, Venita's from Philadelphia and Trenton as well.
Okay.
So that's something that we have to work on together. At one point, we policed ourselves. It would have been very easy for us to say that Black Lives Matter because they matter to us. We weren't taking our own lives. We weren't killing each other. So we have to work on that first, policing ourselves, gaining back our pride, getting our values in line again. Because the 80s really did mess up some people. Michelle, I've had that conversation too. It was terrible. We've arrived finally, so there's no more work to do. And everybody just started to lose their mind. But I'd like to also say that I know as an individual I'm not going to be able to save the world or save us. But I still believe if you could just take one child, and I'm an advocate for children, just one child, show them something different. You know, um, expose them to reading and art and you know different things, then they'll start to get that sense of pride. And when you get this sense of pride, it also enables you to know what's right from wrong. You know, I'm not going to take my own life or take someone else's life. Then that whole thing comes in is that my life does matter. But until we work on that, and that takes some work. Michelle once said we need a 500-year plan. She said that more than once. We probably need about an 800-year plan.
I believe it. Yeah.
You know, but the fact still remains, I think it can be done, and we have to start with the young people. Now, for some of us, unfortunately, and I'm a truth person, some of the mature people, we might just have to just let them die. But meanwhile, back at the range, you know, I mean, some things you just can't, you know, you can't work with. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, we do have the young people.
Right, and each child presents a new opportunity to get
right.
it.
That's right.
And, you know, in terms of instilling
yes
the truths that we want to pay forward.
Yes.
Bill talked about the Mexican example earlier, but I want to reference the Jewish example.
Oh.
You know, and in the way that they take their holidays so seriously, and in the way that they take their messaging so seriously, and transmitting it from generation to generation, and never forget and never forget and never forget. And we don't do that. I mean, we have some holidays. I don't think there are really that many of us that support Kwanzaa. I love Kwanzaa personally, but it's never really caught on for various reasons.
Right.
For a lot of people, Black History Month is kind of I don't.
If I may, you and I spoke about religiosity a little bit earlier.
Bill, one
Yes.
thing to pay attention to is see where the people are on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can kind of adjust your camera so we can see your whole face.
Okay.
Because as more people come in, yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
As I was getting ready to say, you and I spoke about religiosity a little bit earlier, and I guess to some large degree, I'm convoluted about this whole concept of religiosity. It has nothing really to do with God, but the application of how we address God. When we talk about the Jewish community, they have an application of how they deal with it, which lends into the holidays and so have you. With the Muslims, the same thing. Christians have it, but due to missionaries, and slavery, all that particular culture was taken from us. So not to say it was wrong or whatever the case, I'm not condemning or one way or the other, but as a result, we were forced to embrace, if we wanted to, celebrate, so to speak, our religiosity, we had to adopt a perspective that was not of our own. So we only go back a few generations in reference to what God means to us, because what our forefathers had was not paid forward to us. We waited on, the likeness of Caesar Borgia to be celebrated as the Christ, and we embrace this blonde hair, blue eyed. I mean, to this day, you can walk in many, many Black homes and see a blonde hair, blue eyed Jesus. He's not like us. So it's kind of hard to identify with something that doesn't look like you. And regardless of how you cut it, it still comes down to subjugation, which is enslavement. But I don't think that's not to say that we can't find God through that, because I believe that God is within us, so to speak. However, we have to kind of liberate our thoughts to realize the perspective that has been fed us of God is so much bigger than what we have been fed. In other words, I'm giving you oatmeal today, but there's a whole pantry filled with other types of foods, that we're okay with oatmeal, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to be tentative because I was raised Christian. I was very, busy in the church. My father, my mother, whatever the case may be. It's not that I'm rejecting the spirituality of it, but I reject the roteness, the indoctrination, the I just reject that. And as I look, and not to get on the religious kick, but when I look at religiosity today, especially Christianity, there's so many divisions, and to find those that embrace and say, oh yeah, I follow Jesus, but to follow Jesus is a whole different perspective than how they're living, so I'm a little leery of that, and forgive me if I've offended anybody about that or with that.
Well, here's the thing. You're a papa, and we're talking about the opportunity that children provide,
Mm-hmm.
to start us on a new path.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do it?
Well, I think for me personally, I have a son who claims to be a Muslim. Okay, my namesake, as a matter of fact. I've never had a question or rejection or any type of discourse about that, other than to ask him, is he still practicing? Because that's his belief. Now, from a spiritual point of view, I embrace him. I endorse him. I support him. Whatever. If that's the route that you find that you need to find who you are, your spirituality, then so be it. Even if it's through Christianity, then so be it. But I think that we need to know the difference, and we need to know why, why we were influenced that way. And that's not to say that the missionaries are right or wrong. I'm not condemning them or whatever. I just know that they took things in hand and decided that, this is the way we all should worship, and that's that.
So are you saying that it's not a good idea for parents to attempt to influence the thinking of their children?
What's the old adage? They say, feed a man a fish, and he won't be hungry. Teach him how to fish, and he can feed himself. Mm-hmm. I think the same thing applies to spirituality, and that understand the tenets of who you are and what your spirituality is and what it means to you, and to go on to find your own truth. My truth definitely does not, as I was saying, does not include blonde hair and blue eyes. And it doesn't matter to me whether it's the truth or the lie. It's just not my particular perspective. And I stay away from the root aspects of religiosity. That does not mean that I do not pray. That does not mean I do not meditate. But I find that I can embrace Buddha, I can embrace Krishna, I can embrace Muhammad, I can embrace Jesus, I can embrace Zoroaster, I can embrace Mithras, I can embrace all that, because my spirituality leads me to be able to find something redeeming, in their teachings or their words,
But does your spirituality lead you to allow another generation of children to grow up with no cultural consciousness, no social consciousness, believing the lies about them that come from the dominant culture? Because I'm a live and let live free spirit kind of person too. I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying, can we take the free spirit thing too far and leave our children without enough grounding to know who they are in the world and how they need to move forward?
Well, for me, I'm going to stick to my guns and say that I would prefer them to be free-spirited but informed. That there's so much to learn from various walks of life. You can learn from your enemies. But I think along with being informed is to understand how this 300-year-old religion that we embrace so avidly came about. That it was not ours. That doesn't say go out and find it, but what happens with when we talk about culturally, you had mentioned culturally. If you look by and large in the African American community, it is now a part of our culture. It was not a part of our culture when we came here, but now through indoctrination, it is a part of our culture. You know, and I know a whole bunch of African American people would nail me to a cross for saying that, you know, for, you know, talking about their Jesus. And that has nothing to do with Jesus. It has to do with, to me, having the light turned on to understand, you know, where this came from and why, you know. Just it's just like the same thing of when we were finally allowed to read and finally allowed to be educated. Now we think we have a right to do it, but we never made that right. It was granted us, you know. Now the question is, you know, with the light being turned on, that does not mean we have to wait for a scholarship or wait for, you know, public aid, you know, or wait for the welfare check or whatever. We can pick, as we were saying earlier, we can pick up a book and read. You know, there's enough material on the net and throughout YouTube and books written by some very, very brilliant people that belong to us culturally, that are espousing truths and insights that we're not paying attention to because we're waiting to be fed by others what we need to digest. And, you know, that's probably the fallibility, I believe, you know, within our cultural community, you know, that I think needs to change, you know.
Okay, well, as long as we can still read,
Or you watch
Venita,
YouTube.
Venita, would you go ahead and read point number C and the questions there, please?
I didn't want to interrupt you, but the mail never came.
Oh,
So waiting, it didn't come yesterday, and it didn't come today, and my mail is working. So I took my
okay.
phone in on the computers. I didn't want to interrupt you while
Okay,
you're
well,
talking.
why don't you
Time
look?
is running out, so I'll just let you read it because it's not there. It didn't come.
Yeah, well, it's on the Facebook page, on the Facebook event, and the regular Revolutionary Love Leadership page, and it's on the Google Plus page. But I'll go ahead and read point C. The opening section on Imam Jamil Abdullah Al-Amin, formerly known as H. Rap Brown, begins with this comment. To be successful in struggle requires remembrance of the Creator and the doing of good deeds. This is important because successful struggle demands that there be a kind of social consciousness. There has to be a social commitment, a social consciousness that joins men together. Inner Child then shares some of his poetry, a piece called Holy Cost, and follows that with his four-part essay, This Affair, from Allah's slave to those who would successfully respond and resist. The essay goes on to describe some of the key tenets of Islam, especially about the need for remembrance, and suggests there can be no successful struggle without submission to Allah's will. For example, he wrote, values based upon incorrect belief are incapable of producing the moral incentives to bring about the human ascension that is necessary for a truly revolutionary progression. To be healthy, our life must be molded and shaped by a high moral system which can have no basis in its application except that it is favored by the Creator. Question 7. Admittedly, religious beliefs have the power to inspire revolutionary action, be it on the part of ISIL, the Christian right, or the Christian left, or whoever. How can we know if the values we hold and beliefs we accept are favored by the Creator? And question 8. With so many religions active in the world, as well as many human beings who claim no religious beliefs whatsoever, is humanity doomed, in your opinion, to unsuccessful struggle, even if it attempts to promote development of a world that sustains life? Why or why not? You know what, Venita? I think I may have sent the document to your Gmail account.
Yeah, probably.
Bill, any thoughts about that?
Yeah. I go back and, you know, of course, you know, being raised in the Christian church, I remember it was John and I believe not John 17. But anyway, where the Christ was talking to the Pharisees, and he said, you know, you run around looking for heaven, and do you not know that heaven is within you? Okay. You know, to some degree, I embrace, and to some degree, I not necessarily reject, but I think it needs, for me personally, a little bit more refinement, you know, in those words. So, you know, for me, God is within me. You know, he's about all these things outside or whatever, but, you know, quite often in my life I was taught to pray up to some imaginary heaven, you know, where the stars and the moons are. And that's not to say God is not there, but God, creator, you know, universe, whatever people want to call it, doesn't matter to me. But I think that we all were instilled, not all, but, you know, there's some people that are just, you know, something else, but soulless or whatever. But, you know, for the most part, we all were instilled with a moral compass. You know, I think at some degree where the breaking point is that this moral compass we apply to our close ones, our relatives, our loved ones, some a little bit more further out than others, you know, and when it comes to, you know, a different demographic, we turn that moral compass off, you know, and what I'm saying in that is that I am sure that the person that is a racist or a bigot or biased against other demographics, you know, loves their children and would do everything as they want. But that particular moral compass and that moral, you know, attitude needs to embrace all of creation. You know, yeah, you get what I'm saying there in that.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And you had asked me earlier, had I become a Muslim? No. I don't think it's, for me, I don't think it's necessary. Do I believe that God, Allah, the Creator, you know, yes, I do. You know, whether that is childish in my perspective, it's my perspective. I'm okay with that, and whatever someone else is okay with, that's fine with me. But you know, but I think that whether we want to call it, you know, pagan or Hebrew or Muslim or Christian or whatever, the point is, I think that moral compass that we have for each other needs to be far-reaching and embrace the all, not just a certain few, so to speak.
So, I think I hear. I don't know why my phone is acting out. So I think I hear you disagreeing with the imam, at least about the piece. You know, I think what I like about what he's saying is we got to be having this conversation about values and what are good values and what are not good values.
Mm-hmm.
Where I would part company with him, and I think where you part company with him, is when you wrap all of that in the context of a specific God. You know, and then it comes with a whole lot of other stuff that we need to believe and do. But I do think that there's a conversation about
Right.
values.
And I'm not even going to go as far as to say I part company. You know, I embrace, you know, what he has to say, and whether that is his truth or whatever the truth, I'm fine with that. You know, I'm struggling enough with my own truth, you know, not to tell somebody else how, or in a finite sense, how they should think. Okay,
Right.
because I would like to think that spirituality is bigger than any particular tenet, you know, of religion or any particular practice. You know, I think that for me, it's about humanity. You know, it's about being a human being, about having a soul, and if I can express through that, with that, you know, I'm okay with that, so to speak.
So what I kind of got out of that essay, though, is that he's saying until where's that music coming from? Is that me?
Not me.
It's not me.
It's not you. Let me check my page over here. Go ahead and say something, Bill. I'll be right back.
Okay. it gives some background to this, and in all due respect to the imam, and everybody else, I actually was introduced to him through a very, very good friend of mine, Sharif Abdul Rashid, who also is a Muslim. And there is never any particular discourse with him or me. It's we have these wonderful, wonderful discussions. But when I look back on who H. Rap Brown is, so to speak, because that's who he was formerly, H. Rap Brown. I see that he always was for the cause of empowerment of the people. And he spoke a lot of truth, and a lot of times it burned people, a lot of times it was hot, it was fire, whatever the case may be. So I don't necessarily see that he has changed much, other than the fact that the insights that he has been tendered by a spirituality that is more loving and more embracing. And I'm not here to judge or say that's right or that's wrong or whatever the case may be, but all I'm saying is, at this stage in time for me, I have to stand firm on who I am, and sometimes I may defer, sometimes embrace, but whoever you are, that's fine with me. I embrace Christians as well as Buddhists as well as Hindus or whomever. It doesn't make a difference, because ultimately, it's about soul speak. It's about what am I expressing through my soul, and I think that through my soul, I want to express, the love. Whether you find your love through Allah, Jesus, or whatever, I really don't care. But for me, it's about finding the love through myself and then expressing it to the world.
Okay. Venita, anything on that?
Yes, I agree with Bill. I believe in live and let live. I'm not caught up on religion. I was raised in a church because it was traditional in black families to be raised as Baptist or Methodist. However, when I became an adult, I started to make my own choices. I didn't raise my children in a Baptist or Methodist or any other church. I introduced them to God, and I gave them opportunity to find themselves when they became adult. I didn't baptize them, which traditionally that's what happened to me and many other black folk. I think the reason why, too, is because I believe that people need to have the opportunity to choose or not to choose if they want to take on a specific religion or not. So that's how I raise my children. In the process of doing that, I think it's, to me, even more important. Let's take it back for a minute. In every religion, one of the main rules, because the rest of religion, everything else is parables after that, is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Mm-hmm. So that's what I instilled in my children. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And then from there, they can spread it out. We get caught up on that so much. I just think that it's a personal thing, and I still don't understand today, why is it anybody's business? We have bigger problems. that to me is just a deterrent, and I hope I'm not offending the Christian folks, which I probably am, and I've probably done that many times before, and it's not my problem. I'm who I am. But I do agree with Bill. I agree with you 100%. That's just the way I raise my children. I'll support them in any way that I can, so long as it's good. But I just raise them to be good people and to care about other people. And once again, to do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Right.
You get caught up on so much.
And if I may, when we speak about religions, I don't care what religion we're speaking about. There are two basic tenets that every religion espouses, and that is supplication and obedience or reverence. And beyond that, when I think about supplication, that means to give in you know, and submit myself to this feeling of morality, if you want to call it spirituality, it doesn't matter what we call it, and obedience, you know, to listen to it, whether we would call it our instincts, our inner voice, or whatever the case may be. And I think far too often, you know, as a humanity, we go against those things because now, don't get me wrong, you know, you call me a conspiracy theorist, but I certainly also believe that what they say, dominions and principalities, that there are certain dominions and principalities that are not of us that, you know, exist here on this earth. So we got to be mindful as to, you know, what skirt we want to follow, so to speak, you know, or, you know, who we want to align our spirits with and why. And I, you know, I have to agree with you, Venita, in the fact that, you know, do unto others as you have them do unto you. And I most certainly don't want anybody enslaving me, my mind, my spirit, my body, and tell me I have to do such. So I'm not looking to do that for anybody else. You asked me about an opinion. I got a whole bunch of them, but that doesn't mean I'm looking for you to embrace my opinions and live your life according to the will of Bill. You know, that's, you know, I couldn't care less. You know, so.
So okay, so this is the opening essay. This what I would call the deeply religious rationale for struggle, um, for social consciousness, and the foreword, Venita. I don't know if you were here then. Um, I was saying earlier, I felt had really kind of a negative tone. So this is my introduction to the book. Venita knows normally I read ahead, so I kind of know what I'm getting into.
Mm-hmm.
But Bill called me for my birthday yesterday around noontime, I think. And next thing I know, I'm planning a book group to start today. So I read the assignment for today, but I have not read ahead in the book. But you know, it was a little bit jarring for me, Bill, to start out with this kind of hopeless piece and then go into this kind of deeply religious piece. Well, and so I kind of feel like, where are we going?
Well, you know, again, you know, one of the things that, you know, is amiss, you know, within our community and all human beings really, is that there's a lot of people who are. If I was to categorize June, I would say that to a significant degree he's pissed off. Okay, you know, and you know, with that comes frustration. And sometimes that leaks out, you know, those inner things, feelings leaks out into our words. And I think for me, that's all it's about. But I know that, you know, it's counterculture to who he is to a large extent because he's still writing and producing books, you know, the voice in the wilderness screaming, you know, that people will get it, you know. So whether it was the antithesis of how he really feels or it might have been just a mood at the point of him, you know, when he penned this piece. But I got to say, for the most part, it was honest about what he was feeling at the time that he wrote this, you know. And sometimes you can edit away your voice, you know, from the reality of what's, because in all honesty, if we look at what's going on in the news today, I'm pissed off, okay? I'm pissed off. Now, I may tender those thoughts, you know, or I might say them in a different way, but it just still does not change how I feel. You know, I kind of feel like, hey, yeah, y'all need to get it together, you know, which includes me, you know. Would I say that in such a way? So I don't think that it's necessarily negative. I think it's like, you know, the old switch. When my grandfather pulled that switch out, I got my butt moving, you know. That perhaps maybe that's, you know, the reasoning. I don't know if it was the reasoning behind it, but I think that it can be a catalyst for change. And the fact that, you know, and because, you know, we've spent many years crying in the wilderness. You know, the question is who's paying attention. We're not even paying attention. Okay, so, but we never know which voice is going to spawn another voice to become the leader of a million. You know, you know, like we think about our president, and or we think about classic example, Nelson Mandela. You know, we all know basically his story. You know, some may embrace him, some may reject him. It doesn't make a difference. However, he was prolific and significant in reference to the struggle in South Africa. Okay, but where did he find, you know, the will to continue going forward? It was through the poem Invictus, which he recited every day. That was not of us or from us or about us, but it was about the indomitable human spirit that says, you know, I am my captive, you know, and we need to kind of understand that we in a sense just kind of go to the side. We are our biggest enemies. We are the ones that enslave ourselves, you know, through our thoughts, our spirituality, because, you know, we acquiesce to what we are being told. We acquiesce to, you know, the Farrah Fawcett's, you know, and, you know, the TV ads and all those things that they dangle like the carrot in front of the horse that we know are not necessarily unreasonable for us, but, you know, you got to ask yourself, well, why do I want those things? You know, again, indoctrination. You know, so when I look at June, going back, you know, reverting back to June, you know, I can see, you know, a functional part of what he's saying as being like, hey, I got to get on the ball. You know, that's not me. So I can reject it while accepting it as an empowering statement, you know, or statements. So, you know, that kind of makes me want to turn that light on, as I was saying earlier, you know, that maybe there's more I can do, you know. Maybe I need to teach my children something else, or maybe I need to, you know, share this with them, you know. So.
All right. Well, one thing I like to do at the end of this particular series is what I call the love note, which is to relate the day's reading to the concept of love, and that really I think is what you just did for us, Bill, in talking about June's piece. But did you see love coming through anywhere else in these opening pages?
Yeah, you know, like for June, and I'm going to revert back to June. June is my brother, you know, and you know, and to talk about, let me kind of give you some history. We had this particular book, this volume, on the books to be produced, to be done for going on 2 years. Okay, and June has published 3 books through us, and he approached me one day, and he says, you know, that blackmail thing, I want to get that going. So I made him the project manager. You know, so what happened was, you know, a lot of, even though I had pieces, other people had pieces to contribute. You know, I was in touch with HRAP. You know, who's incidentally is a political prisoner in Waymar, Pennsylvania. And June literally, you know, took the bull by the horns, and if you would, co-produce this with me at Inner Child Press. And you know, if there were no love, you know, why would he be bothered? You know, so I think that, you know, we had, you know, many ways through even our practical history that love was expressed through us. You know, I remember my father a few times, baby, I'm doing this for your own good. You know, like it worked. Okay, it didn't say he loved me any less or any more, but it did work. It did, you know, prove to be an initiative or a catalyst for me to change my ways, you know, and I think that we're getting the same type of, you know, input here, in the fact that, you know, sometimes we need to be spanked before those tears can clear our eyes from all that junk that's in them, you know, and I think that that's what, you know, June's perspective is, because I know who he is personally, and you know, as frustrated or depressed as we all may get from time to time in reference to the conditions our lives, you know, are experiencing, I think above it all there is an abiding love that we have for our people. Even in light of all of the strife that we cause each other, there's an abiding love we have, you know, for each other. We just have to kind of practice a little bit more, you know, you know, not raise our hands towards each other and all that kind of stuff, and, you know, be mindful of our tongues, and, you know, but yeah, I think that, you know, there was nothing but love, you know, which is why he went on and said, hey, this is important, you know, for us to do, you know. And as I said, for the love of it, is why we have it in a book form, as opposed to just, an oration or spoken word or a CD in book form, that it can be paid forward, to those who may want to read. It was important to me. I sent, copies to my sons, to my daughters and to a lot of other people, because I felt that it was significant and important enough that even if they didn't read it, maybe someone will see it on their coffee table and pick it up and read it, So that's the purpose. We try.
And that's something. That's what we can do. We can try. So okay, it is actually 8 o'clock on the dot. Um, I'm not a total stickler about it, but I do pretty much like to try to start on time and end on time, and unless we really need to go over. But let me just switch gears for a minute and talk about a little bit of group business. Actually, I'm going to stop the broadcast since it's 8 o'clock, and thank the people that have joined us, because it looks like we've had a couple of viewers. And hopefully we will see you next Friday on Christmas evening. And until then, we are reading our story together. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Venita.